Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide. The Los Angeles Rams. It doesn't get any better than this. Let's go Rams!
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the LA Rams UK podcast, episode 90 of the tail end. I'm John and joined as always is Andy. Andy, Happy New Year, mate. How you doing?
Happy New Year to you as well, mate. I'm doing all right, thanks. Just glad this season's finished with for us, to be honest.
Yep, thank God that one's over there. But first question I've got to ask you is, this is the first episode we've done since pre-Christmas. Did Santa bring you any Rams goodies?
No Rams goodies this year. The wife unfortunately couldn't find any that she fancied, and she wasn't going to pay £100 for a jersey. When I sort of pointed it out and went, "Oh, maybe this," and she's like, "You can get stuffed."
Oh, okay, mate. Cool. I managed to get my mum actually bought me one of the Primark. Sorry, we're selling the NFL kind of like t-shirts and whatnot. My mum managed to get me a Rams one, and I managed to, as I'm wearing it tonight, I managed to get myself an AD alternate jersey off of eBay, which it was one of the guys posted in Discord that he managed to find an AD jersey on there quite cheap, and he was mega chuffed with it. And when I seen that, I went on, had a look, found a seller that was selling a defect, new defect, still tags on it, and looked at the pictures, couldn't pick anything out that was looked wrong with it. So I looked at the description. The defect that they listed was there are no shoulder numbers on the jersey. Now, for anyone that knows the alternate jersey, there isn't any shoulder numbers on it.
No, there
isn't. So I thought take a risk in this. Came out, I think I only paid £28 for it. Came and nice. The jersey is in pristine condition, and it is, yes, without shoulder numbers. So I'm mega chuffed that I managed to get my hands on one of these. So let's get myself a Super Bowl LVI patch. Yeah, it's good to go.
Yeah, no, the wife was having a look in our Primark by where I live, and they had every other team but no Rams.
It's just the story of our lives, isn't it? You can never get Rams gear in the UK. Yeah.
So rather that popular where I live, or somebody that made a mistake in Primark.
That's it, yeah. So we're obviously here to talk about the tail end of the season. So the first episode we've done since before Christmas. So we've got 3 games to go over. So first of all, we will talk about the Christmas or Nickmas Day matchup against the Broncos that saw us come out 51-14 winners. Andy, well, first of all, amazing to get a win on Christmas Day of all days, but going to this game, would you have ever thought we could have put 51 points on the board?
No, never in a million years. I thought this was going to be another one of those, we might sneak it with a field goal, and that just looked like the classic Rams performance. It was just from start to finish, perfect, team football throughout, offense, defense, and special teams. It was just perfect football. And, got to give credit where credit's due. Baker Mayfield, he came in and he looked, to be honest, like the Baker Mayfield of a few years ago when, the Browns were on the rise and, they were making the playoffs. He looked like that sort of player. And, it seemed to be a bit of a resurgence as well for Cam Akers to, start putting his best foot forward again and sort of show us what we, kind of expected from him when we drafted him.
Yep, Akers came out with 3 rushing touchdowns on a day. Baker Mayfield threw for 2. I think only threw for, considering the score, he only threw for 230 yards, which you would think when you see that scoreline, like that the passing yards would be a lot higher. I mean, 250 yards is good, right enough. Don't get me wrong about that. But the Rams scored on every single possession that we had. And I was hard pushed to try and find a game in the past that had happened before. So amazing performance from us. Kind of highlighted how bad the Broncos really were, didn't it? I mean, to the point that we saw the debut. If like myself, you'd watched the Nickelodeon version of the game, I watched the Nickelodeon highlights, you would have seen that Patrick Starr made his debut as play-by-play commentator, and he absolutely roasted Russell Wilson, something chronic. Like, I don't think there's a turkey in the world that would have been roasted the way he was by a bloody cartoon character.
Yeah, no, that was just unbelievable. Whatever's going on with Wilson, that is not the Wilson that we've seen. But we have to give credit to the defense. That they stepped up and just made his life hell. Kobe Durant got a pick, and obviously, Jalen got one, and Bobby Wags. I think that was just, to be honest, the Bobby Wags one was like, yeah, I've seen this play from you a million times before. I know exactly where you're going, and I'm just going to stand here and thank you. I'll take that ball off you. It will just look like a classic. Yeah, I know it. You're going, and I'm staying. Even when he was trying to bait him with the eyes, he just went, nah, sorry, mate, I'm not falling for that one this time.
Well, that's it. Wagner's obviously played that long with Wilson, like you said. He knows the way he looks. He knows the moves. Wilson, for I bet you, probably uses the exact same signal calls that he's always used. He's that type of quarterback that he's probably not. I'm not going to change the way a quarterback can call things on the line as I see it. And Wagner probably says, I know exactly where he's going here. Doesn't matter how he's lining up. I know what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we do have to give credit here. We've roasted them week in, week out to the offensive line. They didn't give up a sack all game.
Exactly.
They played well. And they do have some decent players on. Their defensive line, and it was, like I say, the whole team from start to finish just seemed to, work perfectly well for themselves. It just, everything came together, and it did look like a classic sort of McVay game plan, that we're kind of used to. It's just crisp, quick, get the ball out, but we also controlled the clock a lot as well. And, most of the Broncos' points came in basically garbage time when it really didn't matter, and we kind of put at this point, I think our fourth and fifth stringers out there because, we were basically done, dusted, and he was like, well, I'm not going to injure these guys now. Let's just get them off at the end.
That's it. As we'd said in episodes prior, that the kind of towards the tail end of the season, it was a chance for us to bring, like you said, fourth, fifth string guys in. So it was great that it was the kind of game that we were comfortable to put them out, as opposed to that guy's injured. Well, when you go then, you're the starter now. So it was good that these guys could be rotated in, and we had control of that for once.
Yeah, definitely. It was perfect way to end Christmas Day was just to watch that game and just be like, this was just, a perfect day, and it was, fair play to the team for coming out and doing the job. But then unfortunately, the rest of them weren't particularly much to watch.
Nope. So as we moved on to week 17, we strangely went on the road in our own stadium as we took on our tenants, and unfortunately we dropped to them 31-10. Didn't watch this game myself. I'm aware you didn't really see it. Just either Andy. I did try to watch the highlights today, but I already knew how the game went, and kind of read about the game just after it happened. It just seemed like one of those games we just couldn't really get anything going in offense. Just bad day at the office, really.
Just as you say, bad day at the office. Everything was sort of just didn't seem to click, and we just, I think at that point, I think the team almost was like at a point of, we're done now. Let's just get that's the end of the season as well. But like I say, let the tenants fans, all three of them that they've got, moan and groan about how great they are, and come back when you've got a few rings and you've actually done something. Because let's no doubt you'll be one and done in the playoffs as per usual.
Well, that's it. Like the amount of Chargers fans I've seen after the game going on about, we're now the team in LA just because they beat us. They forget that the last time we faced them in the Coliseum, we ran riot against them, beat them. But, let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about the fact that since, like you said, we've won the Super Bowl. How many rings have they got?
Yeah.
Is that 0? So, you can go on about, we're the number one team in LA. That's cute. Talk to us when you've got 1 ring, let alone 2. Simple as that. So, I mean, it's not great, obviously. I think it was one of those ones at the start of the season we said that was one of the games we highlighted. We wanted to make a statement because of the whole, who's the team in LA. And because even with us winning the Super Bowl, off season press still putting us down, whatnot, and it's always seems to be the case that they want the Chargers to be a bigger team than they actually are nearly, and a lot of kind of like your kind of say your high profile kind of like Rams like fans you see on like social media talking about the atmosphere in SoFi, considering this it's a road game, I guess, right? They said that it was just dead, the atmosphere. There was just nothing from Chargers fans. And I think some people said that they wouldn't mind playing the Chargers every season because it was the quickest they were able to get away from SoFi and get home, get out the car park, because there wasn't that many Chargers fans really there. So,
Yeah.
but there was one thing I did see actually last week, and it was incorrectly reported. You know how they released the attendances for the season. They give you like the percentage of what your team did. They incorrectly listed the Chargers at 5th place with like 101%, and it was actually us that was 5th place. And all the Chargers fans are jumping on it like, see, yeah, we can put more fans in your stadium than yous can. And then when it was corrected, but I think it was PFF actually put up, they corrected it. That was them just run with their tails between their legs.
Yeah.
So they'll forever live in our shadow, is what I would say.
Yeah, they will do, but it was just one of them games. The only positive, I suppose, was Cam Akers another 100+ yards for the game.
Yeah.
That was it. That was what the highlight of it.
Yep, and then we moved on to our most recent game, which there is quite a bit I would say to maybe talk about from this game. So 16-19 lost in overtime to the Seahawks. It's first game I've actually seen live since the last time we played the Seahawks. So watching the game live, the one thing I wanted to highlight specifically out of it was the defensive performance, specifically Jalen Ramsey and Bobby Wagner. Now, Ramsey's been in for a lot of stick over the course of the season. His numbers actually tell a different story. His numbers are actually pretty decent for the season, but him and Wagner they went out to send a message and prove a point. I think Wagner for two different reasons, right? Ramsey probably because he's been in for a lot of stick this season. Wagner because it's his old team. He got labelled as washed up, and that's why they moved him on. So he's went out to make a statement, and it just he Wagner in particular left everything he could on that field. If he'd had to, the impression I got was if he had to give his life in that game on Sunday, he'd have given it. He just went out there with nothing. Ramsey obviously came away with 2 picks, and after the last game, social media, journalists and broadcasters going on about, the Metcalf is the father, Ramsey's the son. Metcalf had him in his back pocket and whatnot. I'm sorry, like, you can kid yourselves on with that. Ramsey picked off passes intended for Metcalf twice. There's only one father and there's one son. The father is Ramsey. The son will always be Metcalf, because he's the one that, has the kind of dummy mouth guard. So he is a bit of a child. But before I get in a wee bit further about this, somebody talking about this game, what was your impression on the Seahawks game, Andy?
You were in it up until basically, as you say, Mayfield threw that pick and that was game over. But the team did, they fought for the win. We'll give them that. They fought for the win. It was just at the end of the day, Seattle is a difficult place to go to at the with the weather and everything else at the best of times. And on another day we could probably have won that game. It was just the way it goes. But as you say, Wagner, put his heart on the line and basically was like, to make a point to the fans as well. I think, because a lot of the fans, I think the phone-ins at the end of last season were like, get rid of him, he's washed up. That was from the fans as well. So I think he had his attitude. And like you say, I think with Jalen Ramsey maybe getting snubbed for the Pro Bowl has sort of maybe put a little bit of a rocket up his backside of, I'm still the best corner in the league. Even though, unfortunately he hasn't shown that this year. There has been mistakes. He's finally maybe, it's given him a little bit of a fire under his backside, and hopefully he can come back next year and be, that top 3 corner that we kind of all expect him to be.
Yeah, I think his performance in particular in this game, I would say that he showed that he's still capable of being that top three cornerback. It's still there. There's been talk over the course of the season by many of us, including us, about is he maybe over the hill now? Is he maybe kind of starting to kind of go down the way his career? Not from what I've seen on Sunday there. He's still got it all in the tank. Like you said, he maybe just needed a fire lit under him, but there was apart from the two picks, there was some key tackles. At that one, you're talking like in the last minute at the 2 yard line, where he literally he tried to take the guy's head off pretty much. If he didn't do it, that was game over there. Like Ramsey, let's say, there's Wagner, like the two of them in particular, just they threw everything they could at that. And like you said, Seattle is the best of times an extremely tough place to go to. I think it's the only game. I know Lambeau is always cold, but that's just Lambeau. You expect that. But going to Seattle, the weather, like you always worry about it raining, because when it rains in Seattle, it pours pretty much, and it's one of those games like we started off strongish on the ground. We started off like we could forge a running game here. We got a bit of momentum going with Bakers. He's had, like you said, a couple of 100-yard games. He's onto a game. He's onto a bit of form. And this game screamed out ground and pound to me. And I actually put up a tweet early in the second quarter, and I put a poll with it saying, right, we've got a running game going here. At what point is the running game abandoned? I think I said next drive, late in the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. The next drive was actually late in the second quarter, so the answer was a combination of two. Is when we came out in our subsequent drive, McVay just started airing it out every time and just totally abandoned the run once again. And it's frustrating because this is one of those games with the weather, wet hands, is slippery hands and whatnot. You don't necessarily. It's the same with the cold, I guess. You don't throw the ball as much in those kind of environments, and with Make Akers was building momentum again, and we just totally, took it out by going, right, well, we're going to pass it now.
Yeah, if he's running a hot hand, let him run it until he stops performing, But then I suppose one thing I should also mention about the game is obviously I think the refs are very much in Seattle's pocket. I think Pete Carroll must have given him a little bit of a payoff that week, because there were some calls that you just sort of scratching your head going, you what?
Yeah, really? I mean, there's obviously two big ones again in the last 2 minutes in particular. That rushing the punter. Williams was tripped and was falling into the punter. I'm sorry, how is he supposed to stop his momentum after being tripped from going into the punter? That's a no call.
It's like if you get pushed into him, it's not supposed to count.
Yes, exactly. That I mean, they didn't show that many replays of it, but it probably was more pushed as he tripped. But it's not his fault that he ended up in the punter. And then the other one is the unnecessary roughness call on Ramsey against Geno Smith. Now, at full speed, initially my reaction was, what's he doing that for? And then you see the replay. Ramsey's pushed across into his path. Ramsey stands his ground. He's well within his right to do that. And he didn't. Exactly. He didn't put any force. He just set himself so that he didn't get knocked in his ass. And then you've got Metcalf, who came in with his hand in Ramsey's face. Fair enough, Ramsey did a bit of a flop, to try and sell it. But that's unsportsmanlike conduct. Where was the call there? Like you said, the referees were very much in favour of Seattle. And I think I actually said that they really need to just, take their jerseys off and just show their Seahawks uniforms under it. They're going about the 12th man in Seattle, but it was really the 13th man that cost us the game, because I know Mayfield threw the pick, right, and it's a bad throw on it. It's I guess it happens, whatnot, but we wouldn't have been in that position.
Yeah, if the calls had gone the right way.
It wasn't for those calls, because it was the punting one is the one that really turned the game, because we get the ball back there, then they're not. We've it's 16-all. It's probably going to overtime anyway, but we've got a chance to try and win it and get in the field goal range. But we're robbed of that by a shady call by the referees, and I think it's the only game this season where, from my memory, that I've actually came out and really felt critical of the referees. Referees make bad calls every week. We've many times I'm going, why not holding on Aaron Donald for this? Why are they not calling this? Why not calling that? That's just questioning the calls. Whereas this one, it just felt blatant by them.
Yeah, blatant, obvious calls that you just like, really.
And
and what the worst thing is, it's the last 2 minutes. It all goes to the booth anyway. So the booth should have overruled them.
That's a very good point. You're right there. So either the booth agreed with him, or the booth, see no evil, hear no evil, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating because, like, given the circumstances, given the personnel we had out there, we didn't necessarily play bad. We tried to finish as strong as we could, which I guess with the season we've had is all we probably could have asked for. And going into this game, we wanted to beat Seattle because we wanted to knock them out of playoffs, and gutted it didn't happen. Gutted we didn't win, but I think going into the game, most people have said, if we can go out and give a good account of ourselves here, all things considered, with all the guys we've lost this year, you could accept getting beat, knowing that, well, we played as well as we could. That's what happened, but the referees, like I said, they took that away from us. They took away from us that, well, we went out and we tried to finish as strong as we could, but ultimately the referees cost us the game. Like I said, but Mayfield might have threw the pick, but it's calls made by the referees that put us in that position.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but anything else you want to say about the season as a whole, Andy, before we move on to news?
Yeah, it's just been a disappointing season, obviously, for us. But, if we could make a few things, we could maybe turn this around next year. But obviously, there's a lot up in the air at the moment, which we're probably about to discuss over the next few segments anyway.
Yeah, certainly. For me, and she's like coming into the last few weeks of the season, it's been a long time since I felt like it's a bit of a strain to watch us, just with everything that's been going on. Like, I always have watched the highlights or whatever. Not, I didn't watch the Chargers one purely because I couldn't be bothered. Based off of the kind of like, is that called, snidiness of Chargers fans. I just thought, I'll watch them when I need to watch them. I guess I wasn't really bored about the game, but the last few weeks it felt tough at times to watch us, not because we're bad, just I think it's just because of the season. It mentally and emotionally took a lot out of me. Don't know how you felt about it, Andy, but it's been tough some weeks watching us, but it's one of those ones you have to make mistakes. You've got to take the rough, because how are you supposed to learn how to pick yourself up? How are you supposed to grow as a player in a team? So fingers crossed that the guys in the roster, the guys who will be there for next year, it helps them grow and helps them develop, because it's not easy coming off the back of a Super Bowl win with so much expectation and pressure already on you. On the field, it just seemed to be a house of cards, and it just, every time we thought we were building it up again, it just kind of started falling to pieces. But like I said, I'm relieved the season's over. Gutted we're not in the playoffs, obviously, because I'm relieved because we can now go away, regroup, and come back at it next year, fingers crossed, with a fully fit and healthy roster.
Yeah, exactly. I get your point. It's kind of like, the motivation to sort of stay up late and watch the games, especially if you've got work the next day or over the Christmas period when you've got family time, and you're like, oh, you know what?
And I think it's because it was prime time games as well. If it was like the Sunday 6 or 9 o'clock, I would have watched it. But it's like you said, it's that staying up till like 1 a.m. or whatnot, or getting up earlier the next morning to watch the game. It's tough, but hey ho. So, anyways, moving on to news, and we have a number of things to talk about. So, let's talk about first of all the quick and positive ones. So, first of all pro team announced for the season, and Aaron Donald, so well, not surprisingly when you think about it, made the cut. So, once again, AD's named All Pro. You surprised to see him there, Andy, or are you like, well, I'd expect him to see him there?
Yeah, a little bit surprised because he's not exactly had a great season himself, and obviously spent the last 4 or 5 weeks injured.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that may be more just his name that's got him there rather than his actual performances this year. But he's still there. I still, the moment still rate him as the number 1 defensive player in the NFL, and hopefully he'll come back with again next season with a bit of a fire under his backside to basically prove himself to go back to that position to be, the number 1 guy again.
Yeah.
And maybe he'll also get a bit more help on the pass rush to maybe free him open as well. Because, I'm sure for him, it's not fun when you've got, sometimes 4 or 5 guys all blocking you, and you're trying to get through them all. Because, the rest of them, we can 1-on-1 everybody else. We'll just stick everybody else on you.
That's that. And obviously, Aaron Donald's number 1 fan, JJ Watt, retired in the last game. So he's off, and, we'll be now waiting for his spot. I can't really argue with him being a future Hall of Famer, to be honest.
No, I can't, to be honest.
The only thing I'm worried about is it gives him more time, to make up spreadsheets about why his brother is a better player than Aaron Donald. So
yeah,
I guess we'll have that to look forward to in the coming years.
Yeah, obviously, and we'll just see. Let's hope AD can come back and get himself back to that player that we kind of expect.
Fingers crossed he's coming back for starters, because it's the usual way he started. But let's not get into that right now. The other bit of good news, obviously, is that Torrey Holt has once again been named as a finalist for the Hall of Fame, and fingers crossed he finally gets in, because and the good thing, I suppose, with this is more and more people who are not associated with the Rams are now starting to ask, why is Holt not getting in? And I don't know if it's just been down to luck with the classes he's been up against, but fingers crossed he is going to get in. I've seen that Bobby Wagner he's been nominated for the Dick Butkus Award. That got announced earlier on today. That's voted on by coaches and fellow players. I've seen as well. With the All-Pro team, I did see that, and I think in the coming days they'll announce, how all the players ranked each other, which will be interesting. And other bit of news first before we come on to we'll deal with the coaching side of stuff in a wee minute. The other one is Alaric Jackson. So he's been a bit busy on Twitter the last few days, hasn't he, Andy?
He certainly has, yeah. But it's nice to see somebody actually taking a bit of ownership from that side of the field and basically saying, this is what's going on, this is what needs to happen, and let's, get on with it. There's been a few questions, about, people are saying, oh, you've left Bruce out, you've left Edwards out, but, he has later gone on to explain Bruce was injured, they don't know nothing about him really, and obviously Edwards is still, we don't even know if he's going to be back next year. Obviously, he's a free agent, but he's also, it's not just a free agent, it's the fact of his health issues. He may not be able to play again for his health because of, he's been out quite a number of weeks now with concussion, and he's never cleared the protocol, which obviously starts to worry a lot of people that, maybe there's something more going on than meets the eye.
I think I'd seen someone tried to claim that he was cleared for the last game, and he said that his intention was to play, but obviously, we're not going to let him play. You've been out last few weeks. We can't concussion issues. Like, no, why are we going to throw you in for one last game? But for context, if anyone's listening to this and hasn't seen it, over the last day or so, Alaric Jackson has basically called out the offensive line. Now, he's called him out from a positive and a negative perspective. He's called him out positively to say that, to praise the guys that we've got in there, but negatively to basically say, like, you guys can do better, and to challenge them, which there's been countless episodes this season where Andy and I have talked about needing guys on the roster to start standing up and speaking up, and to, to get in each other's face, to challenge them, to, give them grief, give them a bit of abuse, to get them to, get a grip of themselves and motivate them. And one thing we did say is with Andrew Whitworth retiring last year, we felt like we'd lost that key voice on the offensive line. Well, I think Jackson has basically came out of the shadows and said, well, I'm going to be that guy. Like you said, Andy, he went through everybody on the offensive line and basically said, well, pretty much gave pros and cons, I guess, for each of them. He also did say, I'm trying to actually find the tweet, because he actually did say who he thought our offensive line should be. So, where is it? Let's see. Right, so he said, from left to right, Noteboom, Jackson, Allen, Ankrum, Havenstein is how he sees the starting offensive line being, based on who we've got, with Shelton, Naseki, Brewer, and Skura as backups, Abushi, Arcuri, and Percher in the hunt. He says that he feels like that scenario would give us flexibility at tackle, centre, and guard. Then he gives another scenario from left to right where he says he would be starting, left tackle. So he'd be Jackson, Ankrum, Allen, Shelton, Havenstein. So it's quite not really in depth, but he's put a lot of thought into how he sees it, and a lot of Rams fans seem to have responded really positively to it. He did put an apologetic tweet out the next day that he wasn't trying to set out to just basically go after his teammates. It was more, this is my thoughts and feelings on our position, the trench, and he said that he'd actually called up every single member of the offensive line, apologised to them if they felt that he was being disrespectful or going after them. It wasn't his intention. It was basically my 2 cents, basically about the offensive line. But I said, for me, it's good to see that there still is someone in the offensive line that's going to be that kind of mouthpiece to, give everybody a kick up the arse, Andy.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's nice to see that, somebody, as you say, is stepping up and basically going, what happened this year wasn't good enough, and we need to sort of, as a group, step up and, take accountability and get better and make sure we don't have that happen to us again. And that is nice to see, in some ways that, somebody at least has taken that ownership. But, I know some of his combinations I'm not too keen on. I think maybe for some of them, the experience of this year to next year maybe can help them. But, even so, a lot of these players, Antrim and that, didn't get any game time through injuries. So they're still at the same place as they were at the start of the season. There is the big omission of obviously Logan Bruss, which, a lot of people were kind of expecting to take one of the guard slots day one. So has he, so that's got people questioning now, has he seen something behind the scenes that we've not seen, that he's not good enough and he doesn't think he's good enough? Or is it a case of he's just gone, he's injured, we don't know, I'm not going to put him in there because we don't know what's going to happen with regards to him?
Yeah, I think it is that. I think it's his opinion based on the guys he's working with and what he sees. And, when Bruss has been injured, so he's not seen enough. If he's seen anything of him, he's not seen enough to make an informed decision about where he should be. And it's one of those ones, obviously, we've been chopping and changing our offensive line throughout the course of the season. So, like I said, it's quite an informed tweet because it's, it's the guys he's working with day in, day out and whatnot. So I can see why Bruss isn't in the conversation at all. But, fingers crossed we can get to see a bit of Bruss next season and see where he's going to fit in. And, fingers crossed there's an addition or two to the offensive line, to strengthen it.
There has to be still additions.
Yeah, because I think, is it the 37th pick?
Yeah,
we will be in the draft. It was obviously confirmed we would have been 6, but we've got a ring instead. So don't complain, everybody. So our first pick will be number 37 because I didn't know this actually about the draft, that teams that finish on the same record, they rotate them per round. So if we're 5 and what? Sorry, 5 and 12. Yeah. We were 5 and 12, so if any other teams are 5 and 12, you basically take turns each round to make it fairer like that, rather than going down to conference or divisional records in terms of drafts. So I didn't know that about the draft, so it was interesting to see that. But yeah, so Alec Jackson being the mouthpiece on the offensive line. So it's not really news. There's one other thing before we come on to talk about the kind of coaching news. The other thing is, like you mentioned up, is more a question for ourselves. What's going to happen to Cam Akers now? Because that was, what, 3 games or whatever, he hit 100 yards a game now or something. And it just seemed to be the Cam Akers showing what he can do on the ground for us. So it's quite humbling, I guess, for myself that in the earlier season I was like, no, get rid of him. I had the pitchfork out ready to chase him out of SoFi for him, like saying, well, I'm not practicing. I'm inactive due to football and personal reasons, as opposed to being injured. But there was rumours that he basically walked out. He came back, he got his head down, he was professional, and he did a job for us. So, has your opinion of Cam Akers changed from early in the season when we had Camgate to what we saw at the tail end of the year?
Yeah, I personally feel we should keep him next year if he wants to obviously be around, and obviously the coaching staff want him. I think he's proved that, unfortunately Achilles injuries can take a while for him to get over, same as, ACLs and stuff. It can take a player. It's not normally that year that they come back. It's normally the year later. So he's roughly on that track of he's showing that, maybe he's fully fit and healthy from that injury now. He's got his head down, and this is, hopefully the Cam Akers, that we can see maybe next season going forward. So personally, I'd keep him. But there is a little part of me that's wondering if he's just done this to basically show to other teams, this is what I'm capable of. Because obviously nobody was interested in when he wanted to go. Basically, teams were like, no, we don't want him. Even though we were actively pushing him, and rumour has it, calling every single front office for every team going, do you want him? Well, we'll take a 7th round pick for him. And nobody wanted him. So is it a case of, as I say, he's putting himself out, or is it a case of he's got his head down, he's settled and gone, this is the best place for me overall. I want to stay. I'm fighting from a position. And, him, and from what I could say, from what McVeigh was saying, they seem to have patched up their relationship between the two of them. But obviously, personally, keep the guy. Let's see what he can do next year. He'll be on his contract year next year. So,
well, he's more likely to play next year. I'd say, for like if he's on a contract year, he's more likely to get his head down and grind it out. I don't think any other team's going to take a chance on him, because you might know better than me, but like there's some people saying that there's certainly a good few options at running back going to go into this draft. Yeah. So why would you want Cam Akers for? He's on his rookie contract with us, but he's going to then. You're looking at, you're going to have to get him off. You're going to have to sign him off his rookie contract, unless you somehow can take it on for the last year. So it would make no sense for teams to trade from when they could pick up a rookie. And like you've said multiple times this year, Andy, running backs are, they're in abundance. There's plenty of running backs you can hear. There's plenty of running backs that are sitting at home waiting for a call. So
exactly.
It's a position that teams don't value as much as they used to do.
No, it'd be more of the scenario of like what happened, say, with the Ravens a couple of years ago, where they lose all the running backs, and then all of a sudden, like, we've got no running backs. Right, we'll have to trade for somebody. We'll take you, and we'll give you 6 for them. That'd be sort of the scenario where maybe he'd go, yeah, actually, I want to go. Bye. There may be teams, that would be desperate enough if they come to that sort of point where they're running out of players through injuries. That they may decide to take that little hit on them, and basically 6-month rent for a 6th, 7th rounder. Most teams, they'll accept that, considering what we gave up for a 6-month rent last year. But we'll see what happens. But personally, like I say, mate, I'd keep him, and let's just see if we can maybe get a good year out of him. But I'd still also be looking for another running back still in the draft that we maybe pick up day 3, just to fill the room up a little bit, because otherwise we're only going to really be left now with Akers and Williams.
Yeah, really need a third running back in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely agree with you there. Like late on the draft, pick up someone just to kind of fill a bit of depth for us.
Yeah, fill the depth, maybe, special teams depth, and we'll just to fill us up, because otherwise, who's the other one we've got on the practice squad? That Ronnie Rivers, he doesn't particularly fill me with much. Like I say, running back is reasonably replaceable, but you still got to have a little bit to you, and a little bit of get up and go, and we'll see. But yeah, definitely, personally, as a fan, I'd keep the guy and just run him next year and see what he does.
Like you said, he's on a contract year, so keep him.
Yeah.
Let his contract. If you want to get rid of him, just let his contract expire.
Well, yeah, exactly. Get a year out of him, let him walk in free agency, and then
make a compensatory pick for him. Then,
yeah, exactly. But we just keep the guy and keep him around, because even he seems to have picked up other stuff. It's not just his running; it's also, I've noticed, he seems to be getting a little bit better now with his pass protection.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't seem to be squiffing the last few weeks as many as he normally previously was, because that was one of the big critical things.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. He's a good running back, but he doesn't seem to pick up his blitz pickups and stuff like that. He seems to just be sort of like, sorry, I forgot about that. I had to do that bit, and I just go and did my own thing. Whereas the last few games, he does seem to have focused on that and been like, there's the blitzer, he's mine, I'm getting him. Even if he's just getting in front of him to slow him down. He does seem to be picking that bit up.
I can't remember. Yeah, because I can't remember the game. We highlighted that as being a serious concern of him at running back, that he didn't have any awareness for pass protection. I can't remember what game it was. I'm not even going to guess what game it was. But yeah, like the oncoming rusher basically was right in his face, and we were like, "How do you not see him?" Like, I think Akers is breaking out because he's going into a passing route, but how can he run straight by someone that's pass rushing Stafford? No one's blocking him, and it resulted in a sack. I remember I can't remember the game, but it was one of the things we did highlight early in the season. The other thing that I will say that I've seen improvement from him the last few weeks is his ability to adjust his run. Is the route he's to run and whatever channels to go up based on what he sees. Because early in the season, a lot of things do. If he's to go, up, the one hole or whatever, he'll stick to that. But if the hole collapses and he can't get through there, he wasn't making any adjustments to sidestep to move into a gap. Whereas the last few weeks, watching him, he seems to be more aware of things like that. He seems to be thinking more as a running back finally.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I was coming back to that point earlier. Maybe he's finally getting over the Achilles. Maybe earlier in the season, it was still giving him a little bit of oof when he, that little bit of pain, and he's finally getting to that point of the season, where it's like, actually, it feels good now, and he's got that confidence to maybe make those jump cuts that he never used to do. Because he's like, that hurts me. I don't want to rip it again, so I'm not going to make. A lot of players have previously discussed when they come off. Even Cup mentioned after his ACL, he was very wary about doing certain things in case it triggered it and he pulled it again, or it'd feel a bit tight or something. So maybe it was a similar thing with him.
Yeah,
that it just, and now it's finally got to the point where he is happy that he can actually do what he's, the stuff like jump cuts and spins and stuff without risking further injuries.
Yep.
But obviously it's just speculation, but it just seems to tie in nicely between it all.
Yep. So all in all, great improvements from Akers in the tail end of the season. So moving on to coaches. So it's that time of year, folks, where people lose their jobs and people come knocking on the Rams' door for coaches. And early in the season, we didn't really expect anyone to come a knocking, but the Texans have came a knocking asking for permission to talk to Thomas Brown, and the Broncos have came a knocking for Raheem Morris. Thoughts on either one of them potentially leaving, Andy?
Yeah, it's the nature of the business. I think I'd like to see maybe Thomas Brown potentially be given a head, because I do think he could do something. He does seem that sort of coach. It just worries me
Mhm.
that the Texans is a bit of a poison chalice given for the past, 2 years. They've sacked the coach after 1 year, and it's not been down personally, I feel, to the coach's fault. It's just the fact that the team is absolutely pants, to be brutally honest. I don't even think Sean McVay could manage to get much better records in that team. Only thing.
I think a lot of people out there might be quite happy if Raheem Morris was to leave. What is your opinion on him potentially going to the Broncos?
Mixed reactions. I don't like his defensive scheme. I think I've made that perfectly clear. I don't like his soft shell scheme. But in terms of, for the players seem to like playing for him. They seem to, they all stand up for the guy and basically say, he's a brilliant coach. So there must be something there. So, with him, it's just, obviously we just don't like his scheme. But I think in terms of, if you do look at the games though, objectively, well, what we've probably been, I think we were like 10th this year in the league defense, top 10 defense. It's not really much more than we could ask for. If you're in the top half of the league in defense, it's all been this year. The offense has been the struggle. The defense has been doing its job and keeping the team, really in a place where they should be winning these games, or they're in winnable positions.
Yeah.
There's not been many games where teams have scored more than about 24. That's the issue, is who's going to be the replacements if we do. It's another coach that we've got to try and replace, and there's not that many flipping out there now that's left that we haven't gone through previously.
Well, there's potentially one that I don't know how you'd feel about this. A lot of people are saying that if the Chargers lose this weekend, Staley will be fired. Would you take him back? I'm not saying I would, I'm just asking the question.
Oh, here you go, you're back. Sorry, mate, you kind of disappeared.
Oh, apologies for that.
Your screen went black, mate.
Really? Apologies for that, folks. It's weird at my end. Everything's still up and it was yourself, so apologies for the technical difficulties there, folks. So just asking, Andy, some talk being said that if the Chargers lose this week and Brandon Staley would be fired, would you take him back? And that's not me saying I would take him back. I'm just asking the question, just when you're saying there's not many options out there.
Yeah, I would take him back. The thing is, would he want to go back to being a defensive coordinator, or would he maybe want to tout himself potentially as another head coach's job? And I think the thing with Morris as well is, obviously, we're probably going to come up to it, but a certain position's up in the air for us, and his name's been touted as potentially taken over within the club as the head coach.
Yeah, we are going to move on to that, but I will say this right now. I don't want Raheem Morris to be head coach of us. I mean, he's, like you said, the players are playing for him. They will play for him. They'll give them all for him. That's great. His defense this year is totally different from his defense last year in terms of system. So who knows what it's going to be like next year? Could be back to top 3, top 5 for all we know. But what we're talking about is obviously the intimations by Sean McVay that he is going to walk away from his position as head coach of the Rams. Now, he said initially about retiring, and then he said about potentially walking away for 1 year for someone else to step up just so he can get a bit of a break and then come back. What? We talked about this a wee while back, I remember, Andy, and we did say that our kind of feelings were, if your heart's not in it, walk and don't look back. Is that how you feel still, Andy? Do you think that if McVay's even hinting at this, do you think he should just go? Or do you think, Okay,
Yeah.
a straight up answer.
Yeah.
I agree,
No.
by the way. And I said it earlier in the season. I said, I think I actually said, well, don't let the door hit you on the way out. If you're going to jump ship after one bad year, then, you're not going to last as a head coach in this league. You need to take, the good with the bad.
Yeah.
And I really don't like this idea of him stepping away for a year.
No.
What is that? So we can tank next year and you can come back with the number 1 pick and get Caleb Williams as your new starting quarterback next year? No, pardon my French, get to fuck with that. Just no. I'm sorry about language there, but that's just, if you don't want to coach this team, go. And it pains me to say that because we've had a great period of success with McVay over the last kind of 4 years. This is just one of those things this year. Injuries is what crippled us. People still going about, oh, the Rams are awful. We've been bad this year because we've not been able to play the offensive line we wanted to play. We've had to, like you said, go with undrafted free agents, third, fourth string guys as our starters. I think all things considered, we did the best we could with the personnel that were healthy enough. And it's one of those ones, if McVay, like, he was coming out with comments about, like, oh, like, I've learned a lot for this year. I've learned a lot for these players. Right, well, if that's the case, use that. Use that for next year. Don't come out and go, oh, I want to think about my future and you want to take time. I'm sorry, you don't have time to make this decision because we don't have time to wait until March for you to decide, do you know what? I'm going to move on. And by that point, anyone that we could have went after is gone. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to hint at this, go now, because we know it's not a ploy or a play, to get a new contract. He got that last year, that last off season. So we know it's not to that. So he is obviously genuinely thinking this. But if he's burnt out, by all be, take time away from the game. But you're not, in my book, you're not taking a year, you're not taking annual leave for a year to come back next year because you can't be bothered. You know what I mean? Like, I hate to turn on him like that, to be honest with you, Andy. I really do. But it's the nature of the game. There's plenty of coaches out there. The next Sean McVay is out there for all we know. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And just, like I said, if your heart's not in it, then
if your
thanks
heart's
for the
not in it,
memories.
Go. Don't leave the team in limbo where we're caught sort of, we need somebody sooner and later because we need to, right, okay, start sorting out what players are we going to give contracts to? What players are going to be here next year? Because, if you're walking away, are other players going to walk off and say, well, I'm not staying then? What's the point? I'll put another year of my life wasted. I want to go and chase a second ring or, what have you, or, what, I'll retire myself. Or,
That's it. If you think about, like McVay previously saying, like, I'll leave when the core of this team, as in the elite players, go. One good thing is that Stafford has came out and categorically said, I'm coming back next year. I'm not retiring. Fingers crossed he's fully healthy and all that, because he also is carrying some issues. But he said that his goal is basically day one, I'm back as QB1, which is great. But you've got the whole thing about, like, people saying, oh, well, Aaron Donald played his last game for the Rams against the Chiefs. We can't have a coach, going, oh, I need to think about this. Then the players don't know, who's going to be there. And maybe from Donald's perspective, he may be like, I'm getting on my career. I can't be bothered with a rebuild or new coach or whatever. Or I can't be bored with this limbo. Like, I'm back, training, but we don't know who the head coach is or whatnot. That uncertainty. Like, these guys want to come in, they want to get their head down, they want to work, they want to win. They don't want this, circus going on off the field of, will he or won't he retire? Will he or won't he be the head coach next year? If you're having the discussion and the thoughts, then this is the kind of game where you have to just go. I mean, look at, like Sean Payton's, his name's been thrown at the ring. He's still under contract with the Saints, but he's obviously, he's retired. He's looking like he's coming back, right? But he stepped away going, well, I'm not coming back to the Saints. I'm staying away because I want a break. No, that's where it's kind of irritating. It was one thing for me to say that he was talking about retiring because we had it last year, right? Fair enough if he wanted to give it, he's married now. He's probably wanting a family. If he wants to settle down on it, whatnot, that's his decision. It's his personal life, and I respect him for it. But bring up a conversation. I'm thinking about retiring. Right, okay, we'll be going through this again. But they then say, no, I'm going to take a year off. No, you don't. You can't do that. And I think what would probably anger me more is if, Kroenke and Sneed allowed him to do it, because it's not fair. Like just you mentioned about Thomas Brown having a head coach role, right? And perhaps he could be somebody that could. People said he could step up in a head coach role, or Morris, right? So just throw their hats in and say they're head coach. What would they do if either one of them won us a Super Bowl next year? You tell me they're going to let Sean McVay come back in and they step down? No, absolutely not. So just get that idea in the bin. If you want to go, Sean, you're gone and you're not coming back.
Yeah,
unless we ask you to come back.
It's not just, obviously, we were talking about these, but don't forget, we've lost our offensive coordinator. He's gone back to Kentucky. He's gone, fuck this, I'm going back to Kentucky again to be the coordinator and QB's coach at Kentucky. So we're already looking for staff. Well, whose staff is it going to be? Is it going to be Morris's staff? Is it going to be Thomas Brown's staff? Is it going to be McVay's? Whose staff is it going to be? We need that thing sorted so that we can get whoever's going to be in the right positions now so that they can get the playbook written for next year. And if you don't know who your head coach is, you can't get your playbook written out and sorted, ready, So I agree, I don't agree with a year sabbatical. No, if you want to go, just go. If you want to retire, do, as you say, what Sean Payton did, retire. If you want to come back next year, great. We'll grab a first rounder for you.
Exactly.
Like basically what the Saints are going to probably get for Payton off whoever it is, the Broncos, and a few others who are, touting his name, and I've got interviews requested with him over the next few weeks.
I think on the topic of Sean Payton, he apparently is interested in taking the Chargers job and has been said to have been doing a bit of research. I think this is where they talk about Staley being fired. I'm not really when they get beat in the playoffs here, which will probably be this weekend. I think that's why that's coming out, because Sean Payton has said of all the jobs out there, the one that interests him is the Chargers. And that's not a job that's there at this moment in time. So I think because of that, Christ, we'll give you a first round if we can get Sean Payton as head coach. So
no, exactly. I'm just trying to see now. I did see a list of teams that are have requested interviews with the guy.
The Broncos is the obvious one that everyone expected. I don't see him in Denver, to be honest with you.
I don't know. I could possibly see it. They do have a pretty set defense, which and he maybe would like the idea of having someone like maybe to get Russell Wilson back in the going. But to be honest, I think that one for Broncos, I reckon Jim Harbaugh, Michigan's coach, probably the you want to get that. Sean Payton's has been interviewed or been requested for the Texans. You might like the idea of high draft picks, starting to rebuild the team from scratch.
I did see that inside sources, they claim it is, did say that Payton likes the idea of coming into. He likes the idea of coming in somewhere where he can literally build everything himself. I don't. Is the Texans the one that have not got a GM at present? Because one of the teams he's interested in doesn't have a general manager, and that's the team that he's apparently that's one of the teams he's interested in because he can build it up and he can have more of a say than coming in going, this is how we want to play football, this is what to do. You're the coach, go do it.
Yeah, maybe so. I'm not too sure on the Texans front, but it might be because let's be honest, if he goes to the Chargers, they've got a team there and they've got expensive contracts, which when you're paying Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, you've got Herbert's contract coming up, which is probably going to be another record-breaking contract that QBs always get. there's a lot of pieces in that team that are there already. It's not really going to be one that he can build in his mold. Whereas you say someone like the Texans, a lot of high draft picks. Obviously, they've got not only this year, but potentially over the next few years, with obviously first rounders for the next number of years from, the Browns that they've got. It's a good opportunity for him to build that team up from scratch into his mold, like he did at, New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
But like I say, with regards to McVay, if he wants the sabbatical, then do what Peyton did. Take the year out, and then we'll send you somewhere else, and we'll get a few draft picks for you. Because you know what, if Sean Payton's going to get a first and maybe a sixth, I think is the touted compensation at the moment, then I'm sorry, McVay should easily get a first and maybe a third or a fourth.
Yeah, absolutely agree there. And just before we move on, so it was Holden Cantor that put a tweet out earlier on this evening. Notable free agents for the Rams in 2023. So what I'll do, Andy, is you can have the say on this. I'll run through the list and you tell me re-sign or walk, okay?
Okay.
A'Shawn Robinson.
Walk.
Really? Oof. Okay.
Yeah. I've never rated the guy.
No?
I made my point. I think I even at the start of the season, I did say out of the two, I'd have rather we binned Robinson and kept Sebastian Joseph Day. I'd have rather have binned his contract and kept Day. I didn't feel he has flashes in games, but I don't feel he's a consistent week in, week out performer for us, like we expect him to on the money that he wants.
Okay, fair enough. Baker Mayfield.
Ideally, I'd like to keep him if we can, but I just don't think. I think he still wants a number one QB job, and I think that's going to be, ideally, I'd like to keep him as a backup, but reality, I don't think it's going to happen.
I think if this was 12 months down the line, I think we'd have more chance of keeping him as a backup because Stafford would be kind of getting towards the end of his contract. So I think if it was 12 months down the line, probably could keep him. But yeah, I think he's going to want to go somewhere where he can be a starter. For me, this next one's a no-brainer. Greg Gaines.
Keep him.
Absolutely. The man is a stud and could be an absolute star for us on that defense line. Troy Hill.
Let him walk. He's not the same player he was a few years ago. He's definitely he's lost his step, and I think he turns 32 next season, which for a corner is, no offense, pretty old. Yeah, and like I say, he's not the same player he was a few years ago for us. There's a reason why the Browns let him go.
Yeah,
clearly.
Matt Gay.
Keep.
Absolutely.
We don't want to mess around. Yeah, we don't need messing around. We went through all this garbage with special teams. We don't need it again.
That's it. Pay the man. He's money, Matt, for a reason.
Yeah. When you got a good thing, just roll with the good thing. If it costs us an extra $1 or $2 million, you know what? So flipping what?
He's worth it. He's worth
it when he's going to win you games with his own leg.
That's it. Especially when he's injured as well, and he can still win you games with that leg.
Exactly.
Next one, Taylor Rapp.
He's a difficult one for me, but I'm going to say walk.
Same. There's been times when I've seen potential there, but he's just he's inconsistent. He'll have one good game for every 5 or 6 bad games,
and he's never improved his tackling. That's one area of fault. Even coming out of college, I said about the guy they need to get him in tackle practice because he does miss a lot of tackles. And we're 4 years down the line, and he's still doing exactly the same stuff that he did coming out of college.
Brandon Hill.
To be honest, I'd let him walk. He has that special teams capability, but again, it's somebody that you can probably find in the draft to replace, for a lot cheaper than what we're getting. And he's done his job at times for us, but hopefully with the emergence this year of Tutu Atwell, he can sort of step up next year and take that position, and then maybe take over the special teams role as well, potentially as well. Maybe put a bit of a mix on that one as well.
Yep, you mentioned him there, Tutu Atwell, in the last few weeks can actually start to show some potential and promise of what they must have seen from
what he was known as in college.
Yeah.
Again, this sort of going to Atwell, off topic a little bit, this opens up the thing of, a lot of people have always been critical of McVeigh and is not wanting to play rookies.
Yeah.
And then when he does finally play them, that's actually go, why didn't you play them earlier? And he has even admitted I should have started the guy maybe a bit more than I did. But, it does raise questions of, maybe if he'd have maybe had a few more games, he'd be even further along in his progress and we'd be seeing, we really wouldn't have had to have paid someone like Robinson what we paid him because we'd have had a ready replacement straight there to just take over on a cheaper contract, which, again, we could have put the money elsewhere, maybe somewhere like the O-line.
Yep. I mean, Riley Dixon.
Keep him. He's done well for us this year. Like I say, I was probably beginning of the season, I was the most critical guy, and I've said this repeatedly. I was saying at the start of the season, why did we cut Dicker and keep Dixon? I'd have rather have kept Dicker. But throughout the season, he's basically come in, he's done his job, exactly what we want. And to be honest, we haven't missed Johnny Hecker one bit. And to be honest, he's probably actually this season been a lot better than Hecker was for his last 2 seasons with us. So, no brainer.
Yeah. A lot of people would disagree with you in that from what I've been reading. He seems to get quite a bit of stick, Dixon. I think it's just people. I don't think they like him, or maybe it's just people that they weren't happy that Haker left. But for me, the guy's been decent enough. He's done what he's asked. He's putting some pretty good long punts. He's putting the odds, rubbish punt, but so did Haker.
Yeah,
so
every punter has the odd fluff punt, or it doesn't quite go right. It slips out of his, or the snap's not perfect to him, so he's got to adjust off the snap. There's been a few snaps where you have looked and he's had to sort of reach out for it because it's not, which obviously then sets, puts their motion off. And people saying, "Oh, he's had a few block punts." Well, that's nothing to do with him. That's to do with the people in front of him who are supposed to block and they're not blocking. Again, this goes back to line play.
Orjek is the long snapper.
Long snapper.
And there's quite a few punts that I've noted that the snap's not been perfect, and it's what's kind of set him off step or whatnot. But
he's even helped. It's not just his own punting. You've also got to look at it from the fact that he's the holder for Matt Gay.
Yeah.
So, he's been pretty perfect. Even when he has had a few, he's managed to still get them down. And, that is a big part of, the kicker's thing, he's got to have that trust, that repetition with the holder and the snapper so that they can work. So if you've already got all that in place and the guy's doing well as a punter, it's a no-brainer for me. You keep your special teams unit intact as best you can so that, unless he comes out and asks for ridiculous money, then you say, all right, well, sorry, mate, you ain't worth that. But, most of these guys, unless you're Justin Tucker, you're only getting league minimum, and that's your luck. That's your lot.
That's it. Because I've seen people saying, "Oh, Punt God's been found not guilty. Maybe we should sign him now."
No. If you're gonna do anything, if you honestly don't want to keep Dixon, you look at the late draft again and maybe draft one. It may if you want the one you want, you may have to do a 5th rounder on him to make sure you snag him. But there are a couple of decent punters coming out. But personally, for me, I've always been very wary about it because you may draft a freaking perfect guy, or you may draft somebody who, when it comes to the pressure of the league, look what happened a few years ago. Sam Sloman came to the team. He's like best punter in college. Oh no, sorry, the best kicker in college.
Yeah,
he came to us, and the pressure of the NFL just got too much for him.
That's it.
And he's not had a jobs. He's had a couple of, injury fill-ins here and there, but has never really, and he was basically, pretty much the punt god, the kicking god of college coming out.
That's it.
So,
So moving on, a few more to go here. 3 more to go. Sorry, Wolford. Sorry.
Bye.
Yeah, I agree there. The guys. No disrespect to him, he's not good enough to be a backup quarterback for us. Maybe he may have luck elsewhere, but for us, with the kind of players that we potentially have on offense, when everyone's fit, he couldn't find them,
Yeah.
So I think I've seen enough of him that time to go, and that's what you're saying about Mayfield. If there was a way we could keep someone like him as backup, we would know we had a decent backup quarterback.
The thing is, there is other potential backup quarterbacks that are going to be available. And obviously, some names people may not be happy with, but you're going to have the likes of Chase McDaniel, potentially even someone like a Sam Darnold. These players who were drafted highly.
Yeah.
The career is never for one reason or other, but they're good enough to be backups, and you'll be able to get these guys on reasonably cheap deals. But like I say, Walford, I just think the NFL is just a level above where he needs to be. I think if he went and dropped down to maybe the XFL, he'd maybe have a decent career in the XFL, sort of the lower tier.
Yeah.
But I just don't think the top competition is his place, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely above him. Nick Scott.
Keep him, personally.
I would absolutely keep him. I think the guy's he's good enough to be out there for us. He's shown, and we'll always have, that hit on Debo. So I think that hit alone would want people to keep him with him. But last but by no means least, David Edwards.
Honestly, I'd say keep him. Pending injury statuses and everything else. Obviously we want to make sure whatever has been going on with him isn't a likely thing to happen again and again, because it seemed to be he had one, he came out, and then a snap later he was back off again, which kind of makes you worried. But personally, I'd keep him because chopping and changing your line is not good. We've quite clearly seen that. Players we should have paid, we've let walk, and unfortunately, we are reaping what we've sowed because we've not kept. We could have kept the likes of Saffold or the players that we've let go, and we've gone cheap, and this is what's happened. And hopefully, with the guy, because he's had such this injury issue, we maybe even decide him on a 1-year prove it deal. Prove that you're fit and healthy, you can come back and do the job. And then go from there with them. But, obviously this all depends on how much money we can free up, because I believe at the moment we're already like $5 million now in the hole on wages before we've even started the season.
Yep, but that's just the way we seem to do things, isn't it?
Yeah.
We like to make things difficult for ourselves with a cap.
Yeah, and I think this is why we're not, we are, normally you'd expect some players who were staying to have signed, like most teams do. They tend to sign in mid-season. We don't seem to. It's almost like there was a rumour last year that we would have kept Day, but we basically would let him go to free agency. Let's see the offers he gets to free agency, and then we'll try and match it, or maybe get him back on a cheaper deal.
Yeah.
And basically the Chargers came in with a deal that we simply cap-wise couldn't afford. So it was a case of, and I could see that happening again this year as we're going to let these players, all of them go, apart maybe one or two, and it'll be the same again. It'll be a case of you've got, praying that they don't get deals so that we can, basically give them league vets and minimum deals and bring them back, which is a dangerous game to play because teams will snaffle these guys up, for a little bit more because they've got the cap space to be able to do it.
That's it. Well, it'll be interesting to see of that list there. That's just the notable ones. That's not the full list.
Yeah, there's about another 6 or 7, but they're more, like I say,
the guys that you would expect to probably walk anyway.
Yeah, or they'll be the ones that will basically come back again. They're guaranteed basically minimum deals that aren't really in terms of the cap, and are likely to be more. They're not guaranteed money. They'll be given contracts to basically for pre-season, and if they're not good enough, they'll be cut. Sort of deals, because we have given a few future deals to a couple of players as well throughout the last few weeks, and that's the only wheeling and dealing we've done.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how free agency goes. So moving on, just before we wrap up, we are now going to talk about the conclusion of the Rams World Cup. So over the month of December, we were praising and getting you guys to vote on what you perceived as being the best Rams wins over the last 4 years, trying to give us something positive to look at with the season not looking very positive at all. So we are now into the final stage. So just between Christmas and New Year, we had the third place playoff, which was the NFC Championship win over the 49ers, taking on the divisional round win over the Buccaneers, and not announced it until now. The NFC Championship win over the 49ers, 82% in vote across both Facebook and Twitter. It was obviously going to be win. It was more a case of a shock that the NFC title win over the Saints didn't make the semi-finals, but as covered on the previous episode of the podcast, it got knocked out by the Buccaneers game purely on votes. So, yep, the NFC Championship win over the 49ers is our third place, and that leads us on to the World Cup final. So, the World Cup final saw the Super Bowl win over the Bengals take on the GOAT, as we call it, of Monday Night Football, which was the Monday night win in the Coliseum over the Chargers. So, Andy, just before we announce the results, what is your take on either match? Try to forget that a ring was won out of the Super Bowl. Think purely about the games themselves.
Yeah, for me personally, it would have been the sheer, as I said previously, the game would be the Monday Night Football game. For me, would be the number one. It was just action packed from start to finish. It was, the even for, if nothing else for neutrals, it was the perfect game. But what I want to put in here now, it's a shame we didn't do this at the end of the season, because I bet you the Broncos game for the other week might have got a few more votes and potentially could have been the game of for who we had out there.
Well, because World Cup cycles fall every 4 years, you'll need to wait another 3 years before the Broncos game can be considered. But there's also not going to be many entries from the 22 season, and then
That's probably going to be the only game for the 22 season that will be like, the only one from this year.
Yep, pretty much, yeah. So, from my perspective, taking the ring away out of the Bengals game, it's a no-brainer that the Chiefs win was the better game to watch, more exciting. And I think I said this previously. So every Super Bowl, with my family, we do have a Super Bowl party, and it's usually after the Super Bowl's taking place. So, like last year, we had it the week after the Super Bowl, so I had to go the whole week without telling my kids that the Rams had actually won the Super Bowl. So it was pretty difficult for me in the house. But the year before, what I did was I put the Chiefs game on and pretended that was the Super Bowl. And my 6-year-old was absolutely like, do they score this much in every game? And I was like, oh, I wish, son. I wish if every game was like this game, this sport would be even more incredible to watch. So that's how good I perceive the Chiefs Monday Night Football win, that you could put it out there as if you're watching a Super Bowl. If it was a Super Bowl, it would be the greatest Super Bowl of all time. But if you put the ring back on, the Bengals game is a Super Bowl win. And that's where I think previously I said, you're asking people to vote. Is the ring more important in terms of the win than the game? Does the ring overshadow the actual game as opposed to the other game? It's one of the greatest games that's been in modern times. And well, let's have a look at how the votes went. So rather than just giving an overall result, broken it down. So first of all, let's look at how the vote went on Twitter. Facebook. We'll start with Facebook, actually. So the votes came in on Facebook. We asked people to like for the Chiefs game, love for the Super Bowl win, and the Monday Night Football game against the Chiefs won on Facebook with 85% of the vote, which I'm actually quite surprised it's that high a vote. However, if we check out Twitter now, so again, it was basically a poll, just click what one you want. The Twitter result has the Super Bowl winning with 76% of the vote. Now, you could go in percentages here and say, well, a higher number in percentage went for the Chiefs game. However, more people voted on Twitter. Ergo, more people in total picked the Super Bowl. So after overtime, I can announce that your World Cup winner for the Rams World Cup is Super Bowl LVI, our 23-20 win over the Cincinnati Bengals. Shock.
Yeah, exactly. Shock, horror. It's a travesty. It should never have won.
That's it.
In all seriousness, though, it is. Yeah, I think unfortunately, it is the ring, and I think it's one that will live in our memory forever. But I think it would be a close one. That's what I think personally. Both games would probably be drawn as number one for me. If you kind of list games from the last 4 years of that they're the ones that if you said right, you've once a week you've got to watch highlights of the two games from the Rams for the rest of your life. It'd be those two games. It'd be the Super Bowl.
If you had to pick one, you'd watch the Chiefs game.
Yeah,
that's how kind of. I guess what you're saying is that's how fine and how minute the margin is between these games. Yeah. It's a Super Bowl win against an amazing game to watch, and well, we did say before this came on, amongst the team, we did talk about it, and everyone kind of did say that the Super Bowl and the Chiefs game was the final, and the other two ones was going to be the NFC title games. But some of the comments before we put the voting live, I asked people for kind of comments on what they thought about each game, and the kind of general consensus was the Chiefs game is the better game to watch and is the better win, but the other's a Super Bowl win, and glory lasts forever.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Within each game would have been a worthy winner in their own right, but a ring is a ring. At the end of the day, it's a championship, so it's no real surprise. I think someone actually said on, I think it was actually in Discord a few weeks back, that if the Super Bowl doesn't win, it's an absolute travesty, and this competition is rigged. So no allegations of cheating here, folks. You voted for it. You picked it. We didn't pick it. I actually voted for the Chiefs game because I voted basically based on the game itself as opposed to what it represented. But I'm not bitter about it. I'm happy that Super Bowl won because it's a Super Bowl ring at the end of the day. And that concludes the Rams World Cup, which, from my perspective, it's been interesting in the last 4 weeks to have something like this going. Unfortunately, it means it's another, 4 years before we do it again. So, hopefully the podcast is still going at that point, at that point. So, but it's been good, hasn't it, Andy? It's good to see what people think about all these games.
Yeah, it's been good to see different people's perspectives on games, and like I say, just a bit of fun from what's been, otherwise a pretty depressing season, to be honest. It's been nice to see it.
Yep. So now that the season's over, we're obviously moving into the postseason, and clearly we're not going to be in the postseason. So just to give you an idea of what we are thinking, kind of postseason plans for the podcast. So we won't be here every week now because we're not covering Rams games every week. So we'll have a couple of weeks off. What we'll do is we'll come back pre-Super Bowl. We'll go over the wild card, divisional, and championship rounds, and then preview Super Bowl LV2, whatever it is, 57. Sorry. We'll preview that, and then we'll do a post-Super Bowl episode just to talk about the Super Bowl. That'll be dependent on whether or not our friends from the NFC West progress there. If, provided they don't win, there will be a post-Super Bowl episode. If they do win, I'm not coming on to talk about it. I don't know.
No chance.
But, but all going well, there'll be a post-Super Bowl episode, and then we'll probably come back around about March time. We'll talk about free agency, how that looks in terms of, we've kind of glossed over kind of Rams, so we'll talk about how Rams free agency is looking, and maybe look at who's out there and who's going to be out there. Then we'll come back pre-draft, talk about the upcoming draft, what our thoughts are, any kind of guys we've seen that we might want to like the look of, and then we'll obviously come back post-draft to talk about the guys we have drafted, and then we'll be kind of sporadically kind of through the summer kind of as training camp, OTAs, etc. progress. That's not to say if something doesn't come up in between that we will podcast. We've mentioned obviously about Sean McVay. If something changes there, he leaves or new head coach comes in, or the likes of someone leaves, we'll react is what we're saying. to whatever happens. But if nothing happens, that's how the postseason looks for you folks. And we look forward to hopefully we'll be...
We want a few weeks off, so please, team, let's have nothing happen for the next few weeks.
Yes.
Just sail through the off-season as happy as we can be.
Yep. Andy and I are checking ourselves in for counselling.
Yeah.
Through that. It's been tough coming on, trying to be as positive as you can be and not be as negative as we've had to be about things. So, a stiff drink and a rest. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So that's it, folks. So that about does this for another episode of the LA Rams UK podcast. Andy, as always, mate, a pleasure to talk to you about the Rams. Thanks for all your help and contributions over the course of the season and for putting up with me as I've kind of, been the one kind of taking the lead, to help with the podcast and that. Fingers crossed we can keep improving and, fingers crossed people, aren't getting sick of hearing our voices, eh?
Hopefully not, mate. No. But yeah, thanks for keeping everything going, mate. And it's been difficult, but it's been fun as well this year. One thing I want to quickly mention that I don't think we covered, but I think probably people will want to talk about it is obviously the Mar Hamlin injury. That was tragic to see what happened to the guy. It was horrific. And, luckily he's now out of hospital. Fingers crossed, that the guy fully recovers and, maybe gets back to his career because, that was horrible to see. You wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. And,
Absolutely. And what's been a season where there's been a lot of controversial injuries, and talking points. Concussion's one thing, but this was a guy who potentially could have lost his life on the field.
Yeah.
And it's just it's good to see that he's out of hospital, he's back home, and that now. It's also good to see that despite being put on IR, he has been paid his full salary by the Bills as well, which has been ratified by the league. And fingers crossed all going well, full recovery, and I'm sure we will see him back. But a lot of thoughts, prayers went out to his family, and he's still even though he's out of hospital, and he's on the route to recovery, he's still in everyone's thoughts, and we just want to wish him all the best in his recovery. And to be honest, out of the teams in the postseason, one of the ones I would like to see the Bills do well. So I think it's one of the ones where what's happened to him, there might be a few other people now wanting the Bills to go out and win it for them.
Yeah, the Bills are sort of one of those teams, if AFC side that I do like to watch because, Bills Mafia seems to be quite a nice, group of, fans, to be honest. They're crazy, but they're not, they're pretty good fun. And like I say, it's also nice to see, the amount of people that put cash, to his charities and stuff, to help. It's been absolutely fantastic. The fact that, the whole NFL community, whether, opposing teams, rival teams, whatever, have all come together for the guy, and the league itself and all the teams coming together to, it just shows, I think, sometimes how special actually this sport actually is, and how much, even though you may be on opposition teams, they'll still come together when things, do go wrong. And there is that support, even from, like I say, guys who potentially your rivals week in, week out, there's still all that love. And, that makes to be honest, is one of the things that makes this game special for me.
Yeah, that's it. And, like you said, it's good to see how that no matter what, people will come together for each other, regardless of what colours or teams they may, wear and play for. So that's us, folks. So thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you in a few weeks' time for our pre-Super Bowl party. Thanks everyone for watching. Andy, as I said, mate, thanks for joining me. Thanks for talking. Thanks for putting up with me. I'll speak to you guys soon.
Yep, you too, mate. You take care, and I'll speak to you in a few weeks.